Hello, and welcome back to Words and Paper ASMR, or perhaps welcome for the very first time. Tonight I'm going to do a couple things a little bit differently. This video is going to be soft-spoken instead of whispered, which is what I've done in my other videos. Also, instead of reading, I'm going to be showing off a book haul that I recently received. If by chance you hear any munching in the background, or that noise, that's my rabbits. They're eating their lettuce for the night, and one of my rabbits just decided to push around the cardboard box. So you might hear some of that. As usual, I'll edit out anything particularly egregious. You can see I got this fantastic stack of books recently. I bet you're thinking it's a lot of books, bet that's a lot of money, but I actually got them all for free. I'm a graduate student, and our department recently got a large donation of books. Somebody left it to us in their will, and after the department took what they wanted, they sent around a list to the graduate students and said, if there's anything you want, go ahead and claim it. So I got a number. It's my rabbit trying to burrow. We'll see if I keep that in. That might be a nice sound. I don't know. I've never seen rabbit ASMR before. So this book here at the bottom, I've had this for a book for a long time. This is the Oxford Classical Dictionary. I got this as a graduation present when I graduated from college for my parents. But the rest of these books are all brand new. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books for $0. It's pretty fantastic. So let's take a look and see what I got. And these are in no particular order. And these also probably aren't very exciting books for you. They're related directly to my field. Alright, so this is The Wit and the Writing of History. It's about the rhetoric of historiography in Imperial Rome. It's by Paul Plass. This book doesn't make a lot of nice noises. Hopefully you're enjoying that munching on lettuce sound in the background, if you can even hear it. I don't know how good this microphone is. Well, I think that's it for this book. This book doesn't make very nice sounds. Okay. That's nice, isn't it? I like that sound. The next one, this is actually directly related to some research I'm doing right now, so I was happy to get it. So I have to check it out from the library, and I can make marginalia notes and things like that. But this is a book about Virgil's Eclogues, which are a collection of 10 bucolic poems. So they're about shepherds and cowherds, goat herds, farmers all singing their songs. But it has sort of an ambiguous political tone to it. It's not all just happy goat herds with goats that, produce good young and have lots of land to graze on. So it's also a little philosophical, but I think it's really quite political. I like them. And it's called Landscapes of Experience. And it's by Eleanor Windsor Leach. I've actually read another book by her about landscapes in Republican Roman literature. Virgil was a writer during the Empire under the Emperor Augustus. I think the cover of this book is going to sound pretty nice. Let me bring this closer to the microphone. So it has a nice jacket. This one's hardcover. The jacket is made out of a nice, very thick, almost cardstock-like material. Looks like we have two other recommendations from Cornell University Press on the back. I'm not familiar with Kirkwood. I don't do a lot with early Greek poetry, but I am familiar with Badian because he does work on Roman literature, so I'm going to be more familiar with him. Apparently these editions are available in paper or cloth. I don't know what that means. I've never owned a cloth book, but that might mean hardback or hardcover. This next book, it looks like the jacket's a little undone up here. Let's match it up. This is Momentary Monsters, Lucan and His Heroes by W.R. Johnson. This is a book I've actually read before. I like it a good deal. I did a big research project on Lucan, and this is one of my sources. Although he himself doesn't rely on a lot of sources, he's trained not in classics, but in comparative literature or complet. So it's not quite as, I don't know, I guess we like to think of ourselves as based in evidence, but he's very theory-based, which I like quite a bit. And this book is made out of, or the jacket is made out of a similar material. This hardcover is like this. I don't know what it is about the sounds of books that I like so much. Even before I knew what ASMR was, I knew one of my favorite things was listening to the sound of the books at the library as they went through the, I suppose it's a demagnifier? Not magnifier, demagnetization. It makes a nice thunk sound as they run the book over the top of it. Or you can, I don't know, I guess it's the magnet or whatever it is that lets them, you know, it'll set the alarms off. But I always loved it. I guess I first noticed it when I was in undergrad. And I loved checking out large quantities of books because they would just run them over the machine like one after the other. They take the spine of the book and they just thunk right through the machine. It's quite nice. Oh, and you might be hearing in the background now some tossing in the hay noises as my rabbit is eating some hay. And they like to, they don't just eat the hay, they like jump in it and they burrow into it. I think they because they can't really burrow anywhere else in the house. They can't bury into linoleum, they can't bury into carpet. So they try to bury into their hay. Of course, they toss their clean hay in with their dirty hay, but I guess they're used to that. That's what rabbits do. But this is the 4th book. This is the Rhetoric of Imitation, Genre and Poetic Memory in Virgil and Other Latin Poets. This is by Jean Biagio Conti, translated by Charles Segal. So Conti was a bit of a... I actually don't know if he's still alive anymore. He's Italian, which is why we have a translator, so that I can read it. But he's a well-respected scholar. He created the first, I actually have it, and it wasn't terribly expensive, surprisingly. I think I paid $35 for like this huge, comprehensive book on every single Latin author, extant Latin author that we still have, like all of it. It's a great like resource. So that's something if you're in college and you're taking a myth class and your professor references, I don't know, Virgil or somebody, you can go look up Virgil, or Ovid. Ovid's probably more likely to come up in a myth class. You can go to the library and look at the Conti and look at Ovid. You'll have all sorts of interesting stuff on Ovid. But I don't actually know what's in this book, but I am interested in sort of memory transmission and memory retransformation and refiguring by authors through literature, so hopefully this will be good. And because it's on Virgil, this might also correspond with that research that I'm doing right now. But who knows? Let's take a look at book number 5. So we're halfway through now. This is The Poet's Voice, Essays on Poetics and Greek Literature by Simon Goldhill. I'm not familiar with this book in particular, but I am familiar with this scholar, Simon Goldhill, and he's done I've read some of his other works on poetics. Actually, I might include some of the things I've read because it's a collection on poetics. You have to excuse me, I'm one-handed. I'm holding my camera with the other hand. I had a bit of a, I don't know, I guess a slip up with its stand, so it's broken and now I'm holding it in place. So we have The Poetic Hero, Language and Representation in the Odyssey. Well, I'm reading that to you guys right now, right? We just read book 1. Or if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's the last video I uploaded. I'll link it in the comments too. I've only read book 1 thus far, so you're not very far behind. Intimations of Immorality, Fame and Tradition from Homer to Pindar. That'd be interesting. I've very recently been reading Pindar. And I'm always reading Homer because I love Homer, even though I'm a Latinist, which means I primarily study Romans and Latin literature. But you can't study really any ancient literature without studying Homer. I mean, you have to have at least you have to have a pretty good knowledge of it. This one's on Aristophanes, I probably won't. Comic inversion and inverted commas, Aristophanes and parody. think I'll read that one. I'm not a big fan of studying comedy. I mean, I enjoy the comedies themselves, but once you start studying them, I just feel like I'm explaining jokes to people, and it's neither very, it's not fun to write, and it's not very fun to read, because I feel like somebody is explaining a joke to me, and, you know, that's never that fun. Alright, so the 4th chapter, Framing, Polyphony and Desire, Theocritus and Hellenistic Poetics. Theocritus and other Hellenistic poets, like Callimachus, are very influential on Virgil, so I'll read that, although it's not, I doubt it's going to be relevant for my current project. This sounds really good. The Paradigms of Epic, Apollonius Rhodius, and the Example of the Past. So, Apollonius, we call him Apollonius of Rhodes. It's probably, if you've heard of him, that's how you've heard him. And he wrote the Argonautica, so about Jason and the Argonauts and Medea. So if you're familiar with those stories, Apollonius writes a version of those. I should probably head on to the next book. This is another book I'm already familiar with. I've read parts of this book already. So, it's Reading Epic by Peter Toohey. And it's on the older side, but it's the 90s maybe. I know what you're thinking. Well, the 90s weren't that long ago, but in scholarship, you know, once somebody comes out later, you know, ideas and thoughts change over time, and when something new comes out, and the field sort of generally, you know, potentially latches onto it, and then something's older, it's still valuable, but it's not considered the source anymore. Yeah, first published 1992. Yeah, this book is sort of generally on sort of epic themes and epic narrators. I'm pretty sure, well, he must do Latin, because that's what I read him for. But he probably does Greek too, I imagine. I don't really recall I read this book not too long ago. The parts I read maybe a year and a half ago. This book has this nice sticky finger sound to it. Let me pull it closer to you. I certainly hope you cannot hear that train horn in the background. It's fairly distant, though. I can only hear it in the winter, when the leaves are off the trees. And moving on, we have 4 books left. I'll try to spend a little bit less time on them. I see we're running a little short. This is a book by Greg Nosh. Oh, sorry for that glare, maybe. Maybe I'll take this cover off. That was a nice sound, wasn't it? Not that. That was horrible. Let's listen to the book binding. Character cut because that was still the stupid fucking train horn. It's a plain cover there, isn't it? But we have lots of very nice spine. Greek Mythology and Poetics by Gregory Naj. And I've read a number of his things, although not this one. And again, I'm interested in poetics. I'm also interested in mythology, so this one works for me. Put that away. I found something, and I'll put this, the jacket cover over there too. So I took that jacket cover off, and I found a surprise inside. Let's see what it is. It's a receipt. Oh, there it is. It looks like he was a former professor because it has the ship to address as our department. Look at that. It's just a receipt, so nothing that special. That's not very interesting, so I'll put that over there. Alright, so this is a great book. This is Virgil's Elements, Physics and Poetry in the Georgics by David O. Ross, Jr. So the Georgics is another work by Virgil. I talked about his eclogues earlier. I think I have a couple books in there about the eclogues. The Georgics is I guess I'll call it a farming manual written by Virgil. It's not a manual or a handbook in the sense that we think of it. So like if a non-farmer nowadays wants to start farming, right, he goes to, or she, will get some kind of books or take classes or learn from people. Alright, my phone ran out of memory, so I had to upload that video, and happened in the middle of talking about Virgil's Elements. I believe that I had just said something about the nature of learning how to farm in ancient times. It's definitely something that was passed down, whether it be how to manage a farm if you're elite. I mean, you're going to learn that from your father, from your family, and even if you're at the lower ends of society, if you're a slave, or rather just somebody who's, a freedman, you're still going to learn from somebody. You're not going to go pick up a book. Not to mention lots of those who are illiterate. People have tried to find out the literacy rates in ancient times to really no avail. They're mostly just speculation. So I wouldn't really put too much stock in anything anybody says about ancient literacy. Not because they're idiots, but just because it's so difficult to know. I mean, really. Yeah, so the Georgics isn't so much a practical handbook. Not to mention that I don't know if I could actually, learn how to farm from this. Or of course not from this book. This book's about the Georgics. But from the Georgics themselves, they are very philosophical about the nature of man, the nature of animals, the nature of our universe. It's really quite interesting beyond the farming bits. But this directly pertains to my research, since I'm actually working on the Georgics now, so this is a great book to have. I've already read a few chapters from it. I have a copy that wasn't mine, so now it's mine, and I can write notes in it. Alright. Our stack is getting so small, just 2 left. This next one is Anxiety Veiled, Euripides and the Traffic in Women. This is quite different than anything else really I've shown you, I think. I don't think anything else has had to do with Greek tragedy. So Euripides was a tragic playwright in ancient Greece. I should mention this book is by, just to give her credit, Nancy Sorkin-Rabinowitz. Oh, my rabbit's burrowing again. Or one of them is. The same one as before. For all I know, that's a pleasant sound. We'll see when I edit. Alright. So yeah. This book doesn't make too many great sounds. Let's try flipping some pages, though. I like the way it looks, too. And if you'll notice, these books are in excellent condition. The previous owner of these books must have been the kind of person that doesn't need to break the bindings of books to read them. I, on the other hand, have an example up here. Definitely break the bindings of books, in fact. There are whole chunks of my book that are falling out. I used to say that I love my books, and that's why they're so beat up. But, I used to call them well-loved. But, about a year or so ago, I've come to a different conclusion, that I just abuse my books. I'm awful. I'm really awful to them. Okay, so the last book, also in excellent condition, is a book by Greg Naj again. We had one from him earlier. It's called The Best of the Achaeans, Concepts of the Hero in Archaic Greek Poetry. So the Achaeans basically means the Greeks. There are slight differentiations using different words for Greeks, but for now we'll just say it's the Greeks because we're not going through all of them. Let me review this again. Oh, that was a nice sound. Let's see. This looks great. Praise, blame, and the hero. I'll definitely be reading that chapter. I'll probably read this entire book. I know that might sound strange if you're not used to reading scholarly books. You're used to reading, I don't know, I guess other popular non-fiction books. And by popular, I don't necessarily mean everybody wants it. I just mean that it's designed for the general public, and not for people who specifically study in that field. Of course, there is some overlap in some of the books, but by and large, the books created for the general public are not the same books that the scholars read. Not that these books are inaccessible by any means. Greg Naj is fairly accessible, if I remember correctly, and so are actually a lot of those people that I've been flipping through. This was the last of my books. Okay, maybe that was the last of the train sounds. So I'll resume again. I have so many books to read. I probably have, I don't know, for my studies, I probably have 30 books on that list. That does not include primary sources. That's all secondary sources. And, of course, some of those books, they're just chapters out of them I want. I would say collections of essays of multiple authors and things like that. But that's in addition to pleasure reading that I want. Alright, but I will leave you with this. Actually, let me go back through. I'll get one of those books that has better sounds. I believe the Virgil's Elements had a nice sounding cover. Is it a thicker cardstock like the it was the Eleanor Leach book, one of the first ones I showed you. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. As always, comments, feedback, suggestions are always welcome. For those of you who are, I guess, sticking with me here, the early phases of my channel, I should be uploading. I don't know when this is going to go live. Probably over this weekend, and then another book or several books of the Odyssey should be up on just a few days after that, and headed on to spring break. And well, of course, I have lots of reading to do as always. I will have some free time to read to you guys. Alright, so I'll leave you just with some sounds of this book, and I hope to see you back next time. So until then,